You don't need closure to let go. You keep trying to make them understand you. Maybe there is one last thing you want to explain, one last message you want to send, one final conversation that somehow will make everything fall into place. You tell yourself that you don't necessarily want them back. You just want clarity. You want to understand why they changed. Why something that once felt so certain suddenly became uncertain. Why a person who once couldn't imagine losing you can now live without you. And perhaps, more than anything, you want them to understand what they meant to you. So you replay conversations. You reread messages. You remember the good moments and examine the bad ones. You think about what you should have said differently, what they should have done differently. And somewhere inside all of this thinking is a quiet hope that if you understand it completely, it will finally stop hurting. But this is where letting go becomes difficult, because sometimes what we call closure is actually a refusal to accept that something has ended without our permission. We are not only grieving the person, we are arguing with reality, and reality rarely argues back. Imagine something very ordinary. You wake up in the morning. For a few seconds, everything feels normal. Then you remember, they're no longer part of your life in the way they used to be. You pick up your phone almost automatically. Nothing. You put it down. 10 minutes later, you check again. Still nothing. Perhaps you see that they were online. Perhaps they posted something. Perhaps they seem perfectly fine. And suddenly your mind begins creating stories. How can they move on so easily? Did I mean less to them than they meant to me? Are they thinking about me? Will they come back? Should I reach out? The strange thing is that almost none of these questions can actually give you peace, because all of them place your peace somewhere outside of you, inside another person's mind, their feelings, their decisions, their next message, their regret, their understanding, their return. And this is where the Stoics offer an uncomfortable but liberating distinction. Some things belong to us. Others do not. Your actions belong to you. Your judgments belong to you. How you choose to respond belongs to you. But another person's feelings do not. Their attraction does not. Their decision to stay does not. Their decision to leave does not. You can influence another human being. You can love them. You can apologize. You can explain yourself honestly. You can become better. But you cannot reach inside another person's mind and arrange their feelings into the shape you need. And the more desperately you try, the more of your life you hand over to something you cannot control. This doesn't mean you should become cold. Stoicism is often misunderstood this way, as if strength means feeling nothing, as if the ideal response to heartbreak is to shrug your shoulders and say, "I don't care." But pretending not to care is not freedom. Sometimes it is simply pain wearing armor. You cared. Maybe you still care. There is nothing contradictory about admitting that someone mattered deeply to you, while also accepting that you cannot force the relationship to continue. You can miss someone without contacting them. You can love someone without waiting for them. You can be hurt by what happened without building your life around the possibility that it might be undone. That is a much harder form of strength, because anger can keep someone emotionally close. Hope can keep someone emotionally close. Even resentment can keep someone close. Acceptance is different. Acceptance allows them to become part of your past. And that can feel frightening, because when you finally stop waiting for someone, you're also admitting that a chapter of your life may genuinely be over. This is why we often search for one final conversation. We imagine that the right words will free us. Maybe they will finally explain everything. Maybe they will apologize. Maybe they will admit that they still care. Maybe they'll tell us we weren't the problem. But think about what you're asking another person to do. You're asking them to give you the emotional permission to move forward. And what happens if they don't? What happens if their explanation makes no sense? What if they contradict themselves? What if they tell you something you don't want to hear? What if they never answer? Do you remain trapped forever? At some point, closure has to become something you are capable of giving yourself. Not because answers are worthless. Sometimes an honest conversation genuinely helps. But because your ability to continue living cannot depend upon receiving the perfect answer from another human being. Perhaps there isn't a perfect answer. People are complicated. Sometimes they don't completely understand their own decisions. Sometimes feelings change gradually. Sometimes timing matters. Sometimes two people hurt each other. Sometimes someone simply stops wanting what they once wanted. And sometimes there is no explanation satisfying enough to make loss feel fair. The mind hates this. The mind prefers a puzzle, because puzzles have solutions. If the relationship failed because of one mistake, perhaps you can correct it. If they misunderstood something, perhaps you can explain it. If you weren't good enough, perhaps you can improve yourself enough that they reconsider. And suddenly heartbreak becomes a project. You start negotiating with yourself, with the past, with them, with reality. I'll give them space for 3 weeks. I'll become better. I'll show them what they're losing. Maybe when they see me happy. But notice what has happened. Your life is still revolving around them. Even your self-improvement has secretly become a message addressed to someone who is no longer there. That isn't letting go. It's waiting in a more sophisticated form. There is another way. You can improve because your life still belongs to you. You can train because you want to become stronger. You can read because you want to understand more. You can spend time alone because solitude has something to teach you. You can meet new people without using them to provoke jealousy. You can build a new life without hoping that somebody from the old one is watching. And slowly, something changes. Not necessarily your memories, not necessarily your feelings, but your relationship to them. You stop asking, will they come back? And begin asking, what am I going to do with the life that is in front of me? That question is yours. You can actually answer it. And perhaps this is the deepest difficulty of letting someone go. You aren't only losing a person, you're losing a future. The trip you imagined, the apartment, the conversations, the ordinary Sunday mornings that never happened, the version of yourself that existed beside them. None of those things were guaranteed, but emotionally, they felt real. So when someone leaves, you're sometimes grieving events that never even occurred. And there is something profoundly human about that. But an imagined future cannot become a prison. There comes a point when you have to return from the life that could have happened to the life that is happening. Here, now, without them. Maybe they will contact you again someday. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll regret leaving. Maybe they'll be completely happy with their decision. You cannot build your peace around any of these possibilities. And you don't need to hate them to move forward. You don't need to prove that they were wrong. You don't need to become so successful that they regret losing you. You don't need revenge. You don't even need indifference. You only need to stop demanding that reality become something other than what it currently is. Today, they are not choosing this relationship. Today, you cannot control their feelings. Today, your life is still yours. That is enough information to take the next step. There may still be evenings when you miss them, songs that bring everything back, places you avoid for a while, moments when you almost send a message. Let those moments exist. You do not have to obey every emotion simply because you feel it. A feeling can be real without becoming an instruction. You can feel the urge to reach backward and continue walking forward. Perhaps that's what letting go actually means. Not forgetting, not becoming cold, not pretending it never mattered, but allowing something to have mattered without requiring it to last forever. The person you lost may never give you the perfect explanation. They may never fully understand you. They may never regret leaving. And strangely, none of that has to determine what happens next. Because closure is not the moment when everything finally makes sense. Sometimes closure is simply the moment when you stop asking the past to give you a different answer and turn back toward your own life.